Hello and welcome to Media Musings. Today we are talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, welcome to anyone who may be lurking in the chat or watching in the future.
I am Groot.
I am Groot.
I'm Groot.
Stand
No,
up.
I'm Groot.
Well, I'm standing now. Happy? Bunch
Yeah.
of jackasses standing in a circle.
Yeah.
I'd stand up, but if I do, my chair will fall over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good movie.
Yeah. Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
But we all have our favorites, I think.
Yeah, and I think Jeff might have frozen.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Internet.
Timing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was doing the. You didn't catch it. I was doing the rocket quote of.
Yeah.
Bunch of
No. Yeah.
jackasses
You
standing-
did that, and then you
And then
froze.
it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. I was like, there's no reaction to this. Why?
Yeah.
Oh no, we did
But-
react. You'll have to watch it back later to see his own.
If you're
Yeah.
going to do Rocket, you've got to go with the I'm getting that leg.
Yeah. Gonna need that leg.
Yeah.
And, well,
I think this one's nice. This is just a fun, as Scummer likes to call it, popcorn movie.
Yeah.
This one's fun.
Yeah.
It's got its little friendship is magic and the power of love messages.
Yeah.
But it is largely just a fun popcorn movie, and I love it. I
And
need it.
and as I tweeted earlier, it is the best D&D movie.
These guys are quite clearly they are someone rolled initiative. Like, that's how that went down.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you as someone who plays D&D, if you watch the character interactions through that lens, this is a D&D game. This is a D&D party.
Yeah, it does make way more sense.
Yeah.
It's something I noticed about this movie that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And seeing as it follows on from last week and Doctor Strange, feels like a good way in.
Yeah.
Characters with screwed up eyes. Yeah, are those two linked, do we think?
Yeah.
Because these look very similar.
Oh, see, I thought you were gonna go to the Marvel hates people with trauma.
Oh no, I'm getting there.
Yeah,
I'm getting there.
we'll
I
get-
thought I'd
we'll
open
get there.
nice and lightly. I thought I'd open on a lightness, on a bit of lightness for a change. I haven't woken up from the last stream yet, so I'm getting there.
I just gotta say because I've got to say because I picked this movie for the Marvel month. I cannot tell you how much I loved this movie.
Yeah.
And I think you got one thing.
Oh, he's gone again.
Yeah, internet.
He didn't roll good initiative.
Yeah. Did you crit fail on your internet check?
Yeah. I think he did.
I love this movie, but I hate this at my internet. It's playing silly buggers at the moment, so hopefully it usually sorts itself out after a little bit. So hopefully this won't be a permanent problem throughout this stream. Yeah, I absolutely love this movie, and I think.
Okay.
All right, DC's obviously got control over Jeff.
Yeah. And actually, I think this is the one MCU movie that Noodle and I saw together in theaters.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So it was a date night movie.
It was a. I think it was just a movie that got released when we were in the same country. To be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it came out when you came
I
over
came to the US. Yeah,
and you and me brought my siblings to go see it.
Yeah, because we did this one, and then there was another movie that we went to see separately, wasn't there? We saw Lucy as well.
Yeah, we saw.
Lucy was good.
Yeah, we saw this, Lucy, and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
That's the one we saw.
Yeah.
If
of the three, this is definitely
the three ain't bad.
Yeah.
I'm scared if I speak that my internet will crash again.
Yeah.
Seems to wait till I speak. I'm trying to say this all. Thing with this, I think, is you can watch this with no context of any of the MCU movies prior to this and just enjoy the hell out of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't need any context because it's almost even though it's in the MCU to begin with, you almost feel like it exists somewhat outside of it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's the references to obviously Thanos and Infinity Stones, which are going to obviously become more of a plot as we go along. But really, there's not an awful lot that really links it to the rest of the MCU, other than a Stan Lee cameo, which is,
Yeah,
and the Rand and the Stone, which is basically a MacGuffin for this film.
Yeah.
I am going to judge this film on the basis of the fact that it's just a fun thing. Within the MCU, it's not the strongest movie, but the MCU has some very good, strong movies.
Yeah.
So that's not an insult.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're discussing, like, say, Cars. Because it is the weakest Pixar movie that I've seen, but it's still a Pixar movie.
Yeah, which means it's better than 80% of everything else that's out there.
Yeah.
This film, I think, I just like the playfulness of it.
Yeah.
It is, even with the dark themes of his mother and the other stuff, it's just playful. It's nice. A little bit cringe with some of the music and the way he dances and sings. I'll be honest. Like, I don't like having a mirror held up to me if that's how I also dance to 80s music, because it's a bit too close for comfort.
I got to say, music is in both of the Guardians films.
It's fantastic.
Been some of my favourite parts of the Guardians as a franchise.
The music is up there. And the thing is, it was nice to go to a movie for me and actually recognise the music, because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
So it's nice. And the whole character is just I think we've done the dark brooding hero to death.
Yeah.
So it's nice to just have someone who's up for a giggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even with sort of characters that are supposed to be dark and brooding, they're kind of, there's the humor. The humor is there, and the comic relief. Drax, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, is the dark, tortured character, but is comic relief at the same time.
Well, like, pretty much all of the Guardians have their except maybe Groot. All of the Guardians have their own dark, tragic backstory. But
they all have their own comic timings, except for Groot, who is more the straight man.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with Groot, even Groot is able to sort of join in the comedic timing a bit, because there's certain situations where they're saying something and you just and you just want to die laughing.
Yeah.
And it's the look on the face with Groot as well.
Yeah, like a lot of Groot is
the
facial expressions.
I cannot get over the fact that they hired Vin Diesel just to say, "I am Groot" for 2 hours.
To be fair, he did it over 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah.
He did it over 1,000 times in each language the movie was translated to.
Je suis Groot.
Yes, soy Groot.
Yeah. But it's just the fact that they've got like a big name action star just to say I am Groot. It was I don't know. That was just something that tickled me for some reason.
Yeah.
I will say I always remember when I showed this movie to my ex, who hates Vin Diesel with a passion, said, "I think that's his best acting performance ever," and I couldn't really argue.
Well, actually, this is the second time Vin Diesel was in a voiceover role where he barely says anything. The first being the Iron Giant.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I've ever seen that movie, so
yeah.
You know how I feel about that movie.
Yeah.
This very nearly caused our divorce.
Yeah.
Ring loves that movie. I can't stand it.
Yeah. Which is like why, even though I really want to talk about it, sometime we probably won't ever talk about it.
Oh no, you can talk about it. Just do it in a week when I'm taking a week off.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about it. It's a good movie.
Yeah. But so, and the movie does so about the music. Sorry, about the music. The good, like, what really works with the soundtrack isn't just the fact that it's a lot of great music from the 70s and actually no, it's mostly from the 70s.
Most of it's 70s.
Oh yeah, most of it's 70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might mix it up with Guardians 2, where there's a bit from the 80s in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the music is specifically tied
to his childhood,
yeah, with Peter Quill's journey as a character.
I would like to point out, though, there's never been a cassette tape that would have run for that long without breaking.
There's never been a cassette that would last for that long without breaking.
Or let alone have that kind of sound quality.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I'm sorry, Walkmans do not last more than 6 months with heavy usage.
Yeah.
We all remember that what it was like. Frigging, they were easier to lug around than boom boxes, but only because they lasted about a tenth of the time. They weren't made to last. I want to know where this dude managed to get a supply of AA batteries.
Yeah.
See, it's one of those things that all the fantastical stuff that happens in this movie. This is the thing we're going to get het up on. That stretching credibility.
It's not realistic enough, Jeff.
It's not realistic. Look, all the other stuff I can hand wave because I don't know shit about what life looks like on other planets. I do know how Walkmans work, so get it right.
Yeah.
Aside from that, he's now living with aliens who have a lot better technology. If he really wanted to keep the music, why wouldn't they have just taken it off the Walkman and put it on something else he could have used?
Yeah, and he could have, even if he wanted to keep the tape as a sentimental item, he could have just shoved it in his jacket. That thing seems to have unlimited pockets anyway.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's really
It's built by Time Lords for him.
To be honest, his pockets are way better than Batman's utility belt. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's very Mary Poppins, his jacket, isn't it?
So, and especially for a superhero movie, and a superhero movie in the very vaguest sense of the word. And especially for a Marvel movie, I know I said it about Doctor Strange, and I know I said it about Black Panther, but, from the get-go, Guardians of the Galaxy does something very, very different.
It does, and I will let you get away with saying that about all three because they do these things in very different ways. They do
Yeah.
different things to each other. It's the only reason you can get away with that.
Yeah.
It feels like someone genuinely just looked at it and went, "Screw you! I am going to make this look as much like an actual comic book as possible."
And
I love it for that. It's so fun.
So, you know, we have the scene at the very beginning before the title crawl, or before the
Yeah, the Marvel logo.
Before the opening credits, where we have Peter losing his mom, which hits anyone who has lost someone to chronic illness.
Yeah. That one was tough for me.
Yeah.
When we saw that in the cinema, I didn't know it at the time, but my mum had less than 3 months to live. So we knew she was sick, but that hit me hard. I think I got teary and you put your arm around me in the cinema ring.
Yeah.
I remember this.
I think
it's unusual for Marvel to open so darkly.
Yeah.
It's quite unusual. I'd expect that more from DC than Marvel.
That's what I think is quite, because it's not a scene that sets the tone for the movie at all.
Well,
I mean, for the plot wise, but I mean, it's not like you if you just watch that first scene, you don't necessarily think this is going to be a good, fun movie.
You don't. You expect a tearjerker and a lot of deep emotions.
That's quite a dark beginning to that, and yet we're about to get into a movie that is just, on the whole, very light-hearted. Even though it does address sort of some of the traumas these guys have, it's a light-hearted movie.
Yeah, it's a lighthearted it's a lighthearted, irreverent comedic space opera.
And it is I will grant you that.
But I will say, while it doesn't really set the tone for the movie, it sets the tone for Peter Quill's character arc.
Yeah, it does. Because he does come across a bit like, he's running from his past a little bit, isn't he? He's quite clearly running from his past. Which is a bit of a Maverick character going on.
A Maverick character with a heart of gold, because you got into a fight. I saw the kids killed a frog and it wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, a good kid from the off who had been through hell. And it's a uniquely horrible thing to go through as a kid, to lose a parent like that, or to have a parent going through that kind of long-term illness, which is quite obvious what his mother had been through.
Yeah.
But that whole line about with the frog and that as well is very, I think it's very it is sort of central to the way that, despite obviously the way he is then subsequently brought up, and how sort of he kind of comes. I mean, as Chris Pratt himself said, he's a cross between Han Solo and Marty McFly. Is the way he describes the character of Quill. Even though he comes across as being a bit like of a jaded outlaw type, somewhere deep down, he's a guy who's is not going to stand by when something
terrible happens. Yeah.
Terrible happens, and when something wrong is happening, there's a certain point he is going to step up and say no.
Yeah, enough's enough.
But see, and so we have that incredibly dark opening, and then which cuts to the Marvel logo, which then cuts to the scene on Morag.
Can I point out, using an alien rat as a microphone is still incredibly dark.
Yeah. But
it was funny though.
Yeah.
It was funny.
and
Get some therapy,
those,
dude, you
you
do
know,
it.
and those two scenes together do set the tone of the movie, where you have something serious and dramatic, and then it's immediately undercut by something comedic.
Yeah. It is very much that, isn't it? And it's throughout every time. So much as a whiff of emotion, and you know something funny is going to happen within like 3 seconds.
Yeah. That happens a number of times throughout this film.
Yeah. I don't think there's a time when it doesn't.
Actually, I can think of one time when it doesn't.
Go on.
When Quill saves Gamora.
Yeah, I don't know. No.
If you look at the frame of the scene where he saved her, the joke's there. It's just not explicitly stated because they needed to keep the rating.
It's
we survived sex is quite clearly implied.
It's because you see the whole line of like something came over me. I don't know what, and then he just goes on, and then you're like, okay, there comes the humor back.
Yeah,
and and then towards the end, the whole thing of like Drax sort of saying he never had friends before, and like you are my friend Quill, and then like, and the green whore, and like, shut up.
Shut up.
Yeah. So, anyways, we have, basically something of a parody to the opening of Raiders.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I never thought of that.
Yeah, well, actually, it very much just came across to my mind as I was talking. But yeah, it's very much just a parody of Raiders, where Quill is going, instead of being the cautious archaeologist, going through this ruin, he's just.
I'm sorry. I must interrupt. Did you just use the word cautious to describe Raiders? Did you just? Oh dear gosh.
No, I Indiana Jones.
Yes. Did you just use the word cautious to describe Indiana Jones?
I'll just say that that those movies are very misleading about archaeology.
Yes, very.
He never once licks a bone, okay?
Okay. But I mean, it isn't shown as, as something serious. Quill's just like having a lark as he's going to get the orb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just rocking out to come and get your love.
Yeah, he is very kind of. Yeah, I know what you're getting at. He's fun in that way. He's just. I think I like Peter because he's one of those rare characters who manages to be both incredibly deep emotionally, but he's still fun, and that's hard to pull off.
He's very adult whilst being childish at the same time.
And as adults, let's be honest, what's the point in being an adult if you can't be childish once in a while?
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's kind of his whole thing. Like he's not forgotten how to have fun, and he's not let it define him.
Yeah.
It's a great message to send.
Just like the legendary hero Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
all the movies to pick.
Yeah, that again is totally. But that like to pick Footloose, it's like it's a total. It just fits Quill to say something like that.
It's just Quill in a nutshell, isn't it?
And Quill, in a different way than Steve, but similarly, Quill is also something of a man out of time.
Oh yeah.
In that, while Steve was frozen in the 1940s, and Quill was abducted in the early 80s, so he didn't grow up with the changing, times of the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, and those were very fast-paced times.
Yeah.
Still are to some extent. I think the early 2000s you can say it about as well. I think emotionally he lives in a world that probably never really existed. He's definitely got a very vivid fantasy life. And I'm not talking about the way he looks at Gamora.
Yeah. Or what his spaceship would look like if you shined a black light in it.
But
how
in a
does
lot
he
of
even
ways,
know who Jason Pollock is? How old was he when he was freaking abducted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, he gets the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
And we have another great, and another great, something of a dramatic moment immediately cut by humor. And which also works because it's a commentary / subversion of the of tropes in superhero movies where the hero gives out their comic book name and in a big dramatic moment. It's like there's another name you might know me by, Star-Lord.
Who?
And you're like, yeah. It's like he's saying that as if that's supposed to engender fear to them or whatever. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
But then by the end of the movie,
yeah.
And I think it's really cute because when you find out the origin of that name, it's just again, he's got a depth that you don't see in the first movie. It comes out more in the second movie.
Yeah.
But there's a depth to him that's hinted at, but then he's kind of hand-waved.
Yeah.
In certain ways.
Well, I wouldn't say it's hand-wave. I would more say it's obfuscated by his roguish persona.
Granted.
Yeah.
It is... This movie, let's be honest, it's friendship is magic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just... It's not just friendship is magic. It's... You can build a friendship on pretty much anything. Let's be honest, the relationship of these characters is built on sarcasm and, oh shit, someone has to do something.
Yeah. Well, I
was going to say it's very much one of those. It's a teen bonding movie with adults.
Yeah,
it is.
It's Goonies done with adults.
Kind of, yeah.
See, so I said this up because so unlike the Avengers film, okay, which is, I mean, it's a similar thing about bringing these team of heroes together to work as a team. I mean, this one's more a group of a lot of really, I suppose different different sort of outlaws. Some of them's kind of screw ups and stuff, and
regular Joes.
Yeah, well, sort of misfits and and them kind of coming together. But it's it's not like that these people got unlike say like the Avengers, you've had all these other films that have introduced some of the characters to you. You haven't had that with Guardians. And these guys, kind of come together. And I guess, there is the thing that they do, as the movie progresses, they do start realizing they do kind of like one another. And there is friendship there.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a line from the trailer, isn't there? So here we are, a thief, two thugs, an assassin, and a maniac.
Yeah. It's like, but it's just this whole. It's not like the Avengers. This is just like this ragtag group of misfits or whatever that have found themselves together, and the whole line of like the Guardians of the Galaxy thing doesn't even come to the end because there's something that Ronan says. And it's not like we will call ourselves the Guardians of the Galaxy. It was not that wasn't their plan going into this,
Yeah. And so now about Ronan, he gets a lot of flack for being just another flat Marvel villain, which I do kind of see the point to that criticism, but he doesn't need to have he doesn't need to be a villain with depth. He is an indoctrinated zealot.
Yeah.
And it is just nice just once to have a bad guy.
Yeah, and
who doesn't admit he's a bad guy. There's literally no extra. And he's just, like you can watch this guy be killed and just be like, yay! And it's nice to go back to sort of the traditional,
It's just this guy is bad. That's it.
Yeah.
That he, as you said, he is a zealot. He isn't, he's an absolute zealot and is kind of continuing, because one of the backstories is that the Kree Empire have but you get the feeling very reluctantly signed a peace treaty.
Yeah.
You definitely get that feeling that it's very reluctant due to the fact that they don't seem to really give a shit about what Ronan's doing.
Yeah.
And
also, I know we tried to keep things as in a vacuum as possible, but given what we see in Captain Marvel, the Kree are just a bunch of dicks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like in the MCU, the Kree are a bunch of dicks.
Yeah, if anyone's watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, you get the Kree are dicks.
I actually haven't, because I watched the trailer and I was like, someone really wanted your name to spell S.H.I.E.L.D., didn't they?
Yeah.
I was like, if that's the joke that went into the trailer, that means that's one of the best ones, and that's middly. So, I didn't really watch it, but I'm sure Ringo would drag me to sit down and binge it at some point. I don't think I have a choice in the matter. When you're married to a nerd like Ring, you do eventually pick up on these things.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
As Thanos says, I am inevitable.
I am Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Tony.
but and unlike the Avengers, which also argue, which had each character, introduced in their own movie previously. Like, we don't get really any backstories, much backstory given to us. Yeah, well, no. That's the thing is, like, so, like, in regards to what each member, aside from Drax, brings to the party, we all get that in the fight on Xandar when they're all trying to get Quill. For different reasons.
Yeah. And
and then we get the rest, the rest of the details that we need, of who these people are in the police lineup.
The police lineup's fun because it's a nice.
Yeah.
Hold on. Can I just do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this is what that machine did.
It's nice because it really gives you an immediate snapshot of who and what these characters are.
Yeah.
Star-Lord, the piss take, the raccoon, and you just see them It's a snapshot. It's really big, a lot better than what could have potentially happened, which would have been an exposition dump of these characters.
Yeah.
Which would have just so very nicely done. It's a trope for a reason. Some tropes are,
I mean, and obviously the thing is, because we'll get to obviously sequels and subsequent MCU films. Yeah, you can get, they can then get into the backstory of some of these characters a bit more.
Yeah.
Which they do in future MCU films, like Infinity War gets into Gamora's background a bit.
Yeah. I think even Guardians 2 gets a bit into her background, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's. I mean, I kind of feel that. I mean, we'll probably talk about this someone else, but
next
Guardians
week.
2. Yeah, Guardians 2 is probably more of a Quill movie than if any of them, but.
But by the time of Guardians 2, there is no Quill without Gamora.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and
love story.
Spoilers.
And
and obviously, like there's not much in this film. There's not much given to Nebula as character, as a backstory. She's just a straight up sort of henchwoman to the villain in this story. Then you get a little bit more, into Guardians 2. You get a bit more into her character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie for me focuses on Drax.
Drax and a bit of Rocket.
Yeah, and Rocket. Yeah. Rocket has the best character growth throughout the movie.
Yeah.
He does. He goes from being basically a mercenary.
Lines.
Yeah. From being a misanthropic mercenary to being something of a reluctant hero.
Yeah. And one thing I want to talk about that this movie does really well, neurodivergencies.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean Drax, although he's the obvious candidate for that. You've got Gamora, who's quite clearly got a traumatic background in that, and it's shown.
Yeah.
You've got Groot, who is, you could apply a lot of readings of neurodivergences and things to that. You can apply a lot of readings to Rocket as well. And the thing is, it's really just nice to see a superhero movie that's not about superheroes. It's just about regular folk, regular people. And I think this one kind of feeds into the same message that we got from Black Panther, the same message that a couple of the Iron Man movies bring out, which is the only thing stopping you being a hero is yourself.
Yeah. Why would you want to save the galaxy? Because I'm one of the idiots who lives in it.
Yeah. And that's such a really important line. Because it's a bit first they came for the socialists, isn't it? What it's hinting at. And it's just nice to see people stand up and say, you know what? Screw the dude in the cape. I'm going to deal with this myself. And he does it in a banging leather jacket. So I love his entire dress sense. Love it. It's like somewhere between Morpheus and Dean Winchester. And one thing I do want to point out while I'm on the topic of that, how did he know to have outfits for all of them in the same red leather as his coat?
Well, actually, they don't get the same red leather until they gear up with the Ravagers, which makes sense, is because he wears a Ravager outfit because he is a Ravager.
Yeah.
Yes, but what were the odds that the Ravagers would have tailored outfits for all of them, including the 2'3" talking raccoon?
Well, I mean, if you look at Yondu's crew, it's a very species diverse group.
But just to point out,
I would say as far as supporting,
Maybe they have replicators.
How long
Yeah.
did they sit staring at each other before they stood in the circle for those clothes to be made? There's a little bit of a, like how quick are Ravager's seamstresses?
Well, maybe they have replicators.
3D printers. I don't know.
Yeah, this is a space opera.
Yeah.
It's the Walkman question all over again.
Yeah.
Listen, I can deal with space and monsters and shit. I need to know the clothes are made right and to the proper standard, and I need to know where the Walkman batteries came from.
And
I've got to say, of all the supporting characters in this movie, I love Yondu.
Yeah.
Having said that
love
about
that
the batteries,
about
batteries, Noodle, when he gets given the iPod later on, you see that it's been modified with an alternative battery power source. So you'd have to assume that his Walkman was the same.
Yeah.
Don't logic my continuity error. I don't like it.
And though I still
agree with you with the tape, though. The tape would be dead.
Yeah.
So I will have to say I will have to say this. So Guardians 1 is largely, it is about the group as a whole getting together, but the central arc is Quill and his mom. Guardians 2 is Quill and his dad. And which is why we get to see more of Yondu and Guardians 2.
Yeah.
But even in the first movie, I just think as far as some of the supporting characters, I don't know what it is. Yondu's just got a certain charm about him that I can't help but like him.
Yondu.
I just can't help but like it, Yondu.
And I didn't know this going in. So, because the cosmic Marvel lore is very much deep cut kind of stuff. So, in the comics, Yondu was basically just Hawkeye in space.
That tracks.
And so I like what they did with the arrow. As an update.
I love
Hawkeye in space.
I love the I think it's called the Yucca arrow. It's one of my Yondu, that he's got the coolest weapon in the MCU.
I agree. It's brilliant.
It'd be like the most awesome weapon in the world for anyone to have, unless your name's Team Skeptic, of course, because he can't whistle. So
this is valid. I can't whistle either, so I wouldn't be too keen. But yeah.
I can't really, but I just I had to get that little joke in there because Team Skeptic infamously can't whistle. It's a running joke.
It's a whole thing, yeah.
So, but back to the kiln, and it's interesting that the prison is called the kiln because what happens in a kiln? Things get forged. And this is where we begin to see, the Guardians, the team that will become the Guardians, the beginning stages of them being,
forged. And they are well forged in fire as well. They're thrown in at the deep end.
Yeah.
Seriously, Groot, that's not.
Yeah. And actually, the whole thing with Rocket Plant. Well, okay. First I have to say the great, I have to mention the great, in processing scene where, Quill tries to get the guard to put his Walkman in impound, and then as Hooked on a Feeling is playing, we see him get tased and see everyone get hosed off and in process.
Yeah. It's very the whole prison thing.
Yeah.
I have a question, and again, it's another. Where was the logic?
Yeah.
When they're being in processed, it's all human-ish guards,
Yeah.
live guards. When the fight breaks out, it's all robot guards.
Yeah.
If you had robot guards, why have you got human guards?
No, they had both. There were human guards when the fight breaks out as well.
Yeah, I know, but my point is, if you've got robot guards, why are there human guards?
Because the robot guards are little more than floating live ammo turrets.
Okay, this is valid.
Yeah. Yeah,
this is why I ask you these questions.
Yeah. Like if you watch the robot guards, all they do is float and shoot.
This is valid.
But and also it's while they're in the kiln that we get our introduction to Drax.
Yeah.
I might be rude and drop out, guys. Painkillers are kicking in on me.
Fair enough.
So,
all right.
Have a good rest of the stream. It is one of the best movies and best characters and everything. So,
Cool.
Enjoy.
Take care, Jen.
Bye. Night.
Bye.
And we have a long drawn out, fairly serious and dramatic scene, at least for the Guardians of the Galaxy. Where Drax has Gamora at knife point and Quill's trying to convince him not to kill her. And then it ends with, I like this knife. I'm keeping it. That was my favorite knife.
I feel like this amuses me.
Yeah.
This mine now.
Yeah.
Again, it's nice to see characters who don't forget how to have fun and don't forget that there is a problem with some hero movies where it's the same problem with movies about people who become royalty. The minute they ascend to their role, they lose all personality. And they stop being the person you were rooting for to get the role in the first place.
Yeah.
This lot never do.
Yeah.
This lot, because they don't, until the end of the movie, accept that they are the heroes of the movie, they stay themselves. And it's really nice. It's just nice to see characters be characters.
Yeah.
And as alien as they are looking at you, Rocket, they're so human.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I remember when this film came out, these characters really, really resonated.
Yeah.
In a way no other Marvel characters did. Like, not even Black Panther did. The whole, Wakanda Forever resonated, but the characters themselves didn't. In this film, the characters resonated.
Yeah.
There were people who were, suddenly leather jackets came back into fashion, and everyone was talking about Drax, and everyone was talking about Groot. Everyone wanted a dancing baby Groot, and everyone wanted,
I've got to say a little bit of trivia here. I love Drax. I love Drax. I just find him such an endearing character in a way. And I've got to really give heads up to Dave Bautista for pulling that off, because I didn't think, I didn't know he had the chops for it. I really didn't.
Well, there was a thing, and this is something I found on, I think, IMDb. He apparently really, really wanted this part, He actually supposedly he broke down when he found out he got the part, and actually took up with an acting coach because he wanted to get it right.
Yeah.
So because he just wanted so badly to be in a Marvel movie.
And for those who don't know, Dave Bautista's a bodybuilder and professional wrestler. And this one of the things is 2014, the very year this movie, about the time this movie was being released, he made a brief comeback to WWE and headlined WrestleMania.
I remember when he was on. Was it WWF, Batista?
Yeah,
I think he was in WWF as well.
It's the same promotion. WWE.
It became WWE.
But he made a big comeback, and he got the big. Although sidebar, the crowd did not want him to win. There was someone else they were rooting for at the time, but he was actually trying to tell the people who run WWE, Vince McMahon, and that they said this could be such a cool year for me. He said I could be at the same time saying I could be in the main event of WrestleMania at the same time I'm number one in the box office of the film, and they were just looking at him like what, because they just did not think Guardians of the Galaxy. They were what this you think this is going to be like the number one movie of this year? Seriously? And they had no clue what that this was going to be such a. And I think actually this was a bit of a breakout for Dave Bautista, in terms of an actor. I mean, I don't think the guy's ever going to win any Oscars or anything, but I think it actually was like, okay, he can do a bit more than just be like a muscle heavy kind of. Even though he is the kind of muscle heavy of the Guardians, he's actually got a bit of act. He's got way more acting chops than Dwayne Johnson. I'll say that.
I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something, and because I want everyone to watch Ring as I say this. My name is Drax the Destroyer. You killed my father. Prepare to die. It's that, isn't it? And he's a great character. I
mean, he is obviously defined, certainly in this movie, by his desire for revenge over this. And then, but the whole fact that his whole thing was his grudges. I must kill Ronan. And then at the very end of the movie, Ronan's dead. So yeah, but actually thinking about it, it's Thanos I need to kill. Yeah. And it's just like the whole. It's just like but even like the little lines about towards the end of the movie about like they're saying to him, don't don't do anything wrong because your records have been expunged. But if you do something wrong, because what if someone does something irksome and I decide to remove his spine?
Yeah,
that's
that's murder. That's one of the worst crimes. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
Or of course, there's the classic. Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast.
Yeah. I would catch it.
And the fact that in a way that Drax is so black and not just literal, but is very black and white in a lot of respects. In the way he sees things.
Yeah, he's on or he's off, isn't he? He's either he loves you or he hates you. He's
Yeah.
And he can, and he's, and it's like I made a little joke earlier about like the whole thing he said to Gamora, like the Green Hawk. Like, even sometimes he's one of those people where he can be like really offensive sometimes without meaning, but he doesn't mean to be.
I think he does. I think he's one of those characters. He knows exactly what he's doing. This is why a lot of people read him as being on the autism spectrum, and great if you do, great representation if you do. I don't think so, because I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
I wouldn't have read him that way myself personally, but
there was a lot of it of him being read as being on the autism spectrum because of the way he's so literal. But he does know exactly what he's doing, I think. And he's got a very... I just think his worldview is very set. Like, he has what he believes. And that's the thing about all these characters. They all come to this with very different worldviews. And they work together because of those different worldviews. Like, this movie would not have worked if Rocket wasn't a misanthropist mercenary.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked if Star-Lord's entire worldview wasn't, fuck it, I'm just going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked if Gamora hadn't have been, I want to live my own life and I want to make my own decisions.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked if Drax's whole thing hadn't have been, you killed my father, prepare to die.
Yeah.
And each of them brings something. They each bring a bit of motivation. And in the end, their motivation becomes each other.
Yeah.
Friendship is magic.
Yeah. And so, in regards to the kiln breakout scene, this is, with Groot and the Quarnix battery. This is one of the reasons why I say this is a D&D movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where we...
Yeah, that's what happens. All the characters are discussing how to do something, and one of them goes, I want to roll to do this, and the DM goes, go on then.
Yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what it is? Is Santi the Sane in the chat?
Yeah. Santi's about.
Yeah, Santi was...
Hey, Santi, Groot's your character, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, we do not talk about our war crimes.
Yeah.
But again, the whole joke with I need that guy's prosthetic leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's again you get the sort of you get that whole wicked sense of humor Rocket has got when he gets this. Okay, I've got the legs. I just wanted to see, he's just like.
I just wanted to look at
I just wanted to look at him walking around with no legs. That's all.
Tell me, how do you look hopping around?
It's really nice with this movie as well that they didn't go softly on issues. So they didn't go softly on the guy with a missing leg. They didn't go softly on, Groot being, what's the words he used? How is it Rocket described it?
Yeah, his vocabularistics are limited to I and am and Groot exclusively in that order.
Yeah, vocabularistically limited.
Yeah.
They don't go softly with it, and everything's a joke. Nothing's sacred in this movie. Nothing at all. Even I think to the detriment of the things that are sacred in this movie.
Yeah.
Because the only thing Star-Lord holds sacred is his mother's memory, but even that, he kind of, you see him grow out of that.
Yeah.
By the end of the film.
Yeah, because, the film ends with him opening the package because he finally acknowledges that she's gone.
Yeah. And it's a fair cop, because if you go through something like that as a kid and then immediately get abducted by aliens, you kind of got priorities.
Yeah.
It's it's the whole thing that he goes back to get his Walkman when they break out.
Yeah.
That is like that obviously the rest of the team is like,
what the you're gonna get us killed.
I mean, what's the like? You're an imbecile.
Yeah, well, first Drax is like, he has spirit, he is a valiant warrior, and then he realizes they just went back for the Walkman, and he's like, you're an imbecile.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is that, and it's
I am going to die next to the biggest idiots in the galaxy.
Yeah. I love that. I loved that because it's sort of the way. Because he's sort of saying that, like I said earlier, about the way this kind of group is. That this is a bunch of like ragtag misfits, kind of screw ups that are suddenly are put together, but when they come together, they're brilliant. At the end, it's
they are a D&D party.
Yeah,
they just they are the D&D party that happens when the DM doesn't hold a 0 session and says to everyone, just go nuts.
Yeah.
That's what happens there.
Why am I feeling judged right now?
You brought the D&D references into this.
Yeah.
You have yourself to blame.
Yeah.
Yes. Nah, to
But-
be fair, you do hold good zero sessions. You're all right like that.
Yeah.
But this, I'm going to be a green human hybrid with red hair and rolls dice, 17 intelligence and
Yeah.
12 athletics and charisma -7.
Yeah.
It's kind of that's what's happened, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So I think let's progress on with the with the story and move on to nowhere.
How long were you sitting on that pun?
Like 5 seconds.
Yeah, this is valid. Yeah, you pun enough that I can see that being off the cuff.
Yeah.
So they're at nowhere. This is the thing about this film. There's so many things to say, but they're all basically the same thing of, I like this bit, it was cool, and it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So after a while, I feel like I'm repeating myself.
Yeah. Well, where we have a bit of downtime, Drax and Rocket are at the gambling table, and, Gamora and Quill compare backstories.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's be honest, the negotiation tactic was not, the keeping them waiting was not a negotiation tactic. The keeping them waiting was we need to expo dump this.
Yeah.
That's what that was. Although very cleverly done, so I'm not going to argue. Also, for the record, this movie also did casinos better than Bond.
Yeah.
Marvel does casinos better than Bond. Don't at me.
Yeah. And of course, Rocket and Drax have their fight, which which has to get calmed down, and we get introduced to the first of the celestial characters in the MCU to be introduced, the Collector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have something to say. I can see it on your face.
It's brewing. A moment.
Yeah,
Keep talking.
okay.
Go, Noodle. I think
No, you first.
And of course, in the comics, the Collector was originally basically a parody / satire of comic book fanboys, because, well, in the Marvel comic lore, the various Celestials each have their one obsession, where we have the Game Master, who is later played by Jeff Goldblum in Thor Ragnarok, whose whole thing is setting up fights between beings to see who will be victorious. And we have the Collector, whose obsession was collecting things. Like in his first appearance, he showed up on Earth to collect a full set of the Avengers, and then freaked out when he couldn't find Ant-Man, because he didn't know that Giant Man and Ant-Man were the same person.
He'd make a good Doctor Who villain.
Yeah.
He feels like that Doctor Who villain from the Chris Eccleston years, with Billy Piper, the American who lived kind of underground and collected all the alien shit.
Yeah.
He's a weird one. He's just weird, okay? He looks like the baddie out of the Matrix, and he's just... he's...
And once again, we are going to have to leave the little vacuum bubble that we've constructed for ourselves. because his motivation, I think, is actually predicated on the events from Thor: The Dark World. Because at the end of Thor: The Dark World, the Asgardians give the Ether, which is the Reality Stone, to the Collector to keep safe. And of course, once he has one, he's got to have the whole set.
Yeah. He's that obsessive fanboy who wants all the Pokemon cards, isn't he?
Yeah.
Even the stuff that's really no one wants in their collection, I'm looking at the duck.
We'll get. I'm sure we'll get to him.
There.
Yeah.
We'll get to him.
It's an odd one because the character is so infinitely old.
Yeah.
And to be a collector, he's had the opportunity to collect everything. And you see it, and there's lots of little pop culture nods and historic nods in there.
Yeah. Well, we see a dark elf from, Thor 2.
First dog on the moon.
No, actually,
first dog in space, even.
Yeah.
Laika.
Yeah, that could either be Laika or it could be Cosmo, which was an astronaut dog in Marvel Comics. Yeah, the collector's museum, for lack of a better term, is basically an Easter egg gold mine.
Yeah, it is. I think the collector for me is the creepiest character in this movie. Because there's no differentiation between living and dead, between inanimate and sentient, or even semi-sentient. He just wants everything in its own little glass box.
Oh yeah, the first thing he does when he meets the group is ask to buy Groot's corpse.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you see the way he treats his servant, was obviously a slave,
Yeah.
Mm.
And the threat putting in there, hey, give it a bit of elbow grease or else.
Yeah.
Or else what?
Yeah.
You don't really need the or else.
Well, you get the or else because the camera pans to, presumably her sister or, her fellow attendant in the, in one of the glass cages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he is a very stereotypical Hollywood psychopath.
Yeah.
Note I said Hollywood psychopath. Please don't come at me with definitions of what a psychopath is.
Yeah.
He is what most people think of when you think of the really bad psycho villain.
Yeah.
And he's a side note in this movie, which is interesting. He could very much be the big bad of his own movie somewhere.
Yeah.
His motivations are very shallow. He has no particular interest in anything. He just wants everything.
Yeah,
he's a hoarder.
Yeah, he's a bored immortal who fills his time by hoarding things.
Yeah.
So he is the dragon of this.
Yeah, he is the mythical dragon in this story.
Yeah.
And did they not have other issues, the story would have been Slay the Dragon.
Yeah.
He, like I said, he just creeps me out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know I'm being a bit lackluster today. I apologize to everyone. I'm on new medication and it makes me drowsy. But he's just... They took the opportunity to include all the meta and the fan service all in one go and get it out the way.
Yeah.
I feel like that character is very, very, almost criminally underexplored.
Yeah.
You could write a lot of plots around that character.
But the fact is that in a certain way that he didn't need. The thing is, it's something that could be left open for future Marvel movies again, isn't it?
Yeah.
And with this character, yeah, I mean, what at the point in this movie, at this point in the movie as well, the motivations between most of the Guardians and Drax is very different. They're like, hey, we're all going to make enough money here to
live like kings for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, or maybe more, or more,
buy our freedom.
Case. Yeah, or like say Gamora's case. Hey, this will get her well away from Thanos and Ronan, and live her life, and for obviously Rocket and probably for Quill. Yeah, we're going to be set for life. Drax doesn't give a shit. He does not give a shit about money.
Scummer. It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
Yeah.
And you've got that combination of, for them, it is strictly business. It's money in exchange for a service.
Yeah.
For Drax, no amount of money is ever going to be enough.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, and of course, in the scene, with the Collector, we learn what's in the orb that everybody's been wanting to get.
Still a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Not actually relevant to the plot what it does at all.
Yeah. And largely a MacGuffin to set up the MacGuffin for Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
To be fair, it's a MacGuffin in those movies too.
Yeah. Well, it's part of the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
The six Infinity MacGuffins.
Yeah. Which I think is actually really useful when you're discussing the Collector. He wants it because he wants it, and there's no other reason.
Yeah, he wants it to have it in his collection. Thanos wants it because Thanos wants to use it.
Yeah. And there is a debate to be had there about which is more deserving of it. I say with a wince.
Yeah.
Considering how Thanos wants to use it,
that is also relevant to the discussion.
Yeah.
I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark.
Sorry, I had to.
Yeah.
You broke it.
And but of course, once they learn what's in the orb and what it does, especially seeing what happens to the slave girl who tries to use it.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this needs to be locked away so no one can get their hands on it.
Although I forget at which point in the movie it was though that Quill's sort of like agreeing because Gamora's like was the one who sort of said this, we can't. But Quill's also kind of sort of makes a hint. Yeah, you are right, but we could sell it. So and just to look at contempt she has for Quill in that moment as well is just like.
And of course, here's where Drax has his D&D player character moment, where while everybody else is getting exposition dumped, he goes off and calls the big bad because he wants a fight.
Yeah. And this is... I watched the cinema scenes for this movie.
Yeah.
And the cinema scenes says that Drax wants to know why Drax keeps coming back to a fight he can't win. which completely misses the point of Drax's character.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do have my issues with Cinema Sins.
I prefer Cinema Wins in general, just because it's more positive. But
like if we ever talk about Kingsman, I'll bring up some issues I have with their video on with the Cinema Sins video on Kingsman.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to remember Drax is just this is the thing that drives him.
Yeah, his entire motivation is avenging his father.
Is avenging his family or joining.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's weird that he's even open to that option, to be honest.
And his whole, I mean, really, in a sense, Drax has got the tunnel vision in that respect. I am either going to kill Ronin or I'm going to die trying.
Yeah, if you can't beat him, join him.
Yeah.
Is kind of his mentality for all of it. And again, it's only after that big fight that you see them really come together as a team.
Yeah.
Because they finally all done something within that fight that binds them together.
Yeah. Groot saves Drax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quill saves Gamora.
Yeah.
At even to the point of, giving his location to Yondu, even though he knows bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, he knows Yondu is pissed at him.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Yondu, which will, next week, we'll probably explain why Yondu doesn't kill him.
Yeah.
Teaser for next week if you haven't watched any of these, but he gives his position away to Yondu, and just for a few seconds there, he takes the mask and puts himself into the vacuum of space to save Gamora.
Yeah,
and then there's that whole scene when they picked up by Yondu, and he can't, and again, what we said earlier about the
we don't talk about the vacuum of space too loudly, otherwise Amanda comes and tells us how the physics is bad.
Yeah. What I just said to her last week, 2 words: Star Wars. Amanda's been quiet ever since.
But no, the physics. It's a space opera.
Yeah,
it's just to suspend your goddamn disbelief.
Here, and of course, now we have a very important question raised by the movie. Is blowing up the ship that someone's on saving them?
I'm inclined to say no.
I'm inclined to say that the outcome may...
I'm inclined to say that Rocket...
It depends on whether I have a working parachute.
Yeah.
I'm inclined to say Rocket and Drax did not think their plan through very well.
Yeah, it's very...
Would you say it's more or less than 12% of a plan?
It's about 4% of a plan.
I'd say Quill had a good 10.6% more of a plan than Rocket did.
Yeah. Do you know what though? It's that thing, isn't it? Of it worked, and the thing is, you could take the Mickey out the plan all you want, but it worked.
Yeah.
And most plans, we know this from experience, do not survive contact with the enemy. Therefore, the ones that do are the ones that we stick with.
Yeah.
That was very much, I think, that moment was very clearly, well, if we're going to go, we're all going together.
Yeah.
If I'll go down, I'll go down swinging.
It's elastic. I love to. It's like Quill gets on there. Hey, no, we've worked our differences out. Hi, Quill.
Hi, Quill.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and then obviously, you have the big, you had the thing where they come on, and there is the big bonding moment then of them, the team forming kind of thing, really.
And of
That is
course,
the moment
it's
it forms,
it's this big dramatic moment, and then it is immediately undercut with, well, here we are, a bunch of jackasses standing in a circle.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's kind of what I like about Rocket. He gets to the not the truth of a situation, because I think he misses the truth, but I think he gets to he's very good at minimizing every situation.
Yeah.
And he does it without, like, he does it to all situations. So it could be the worst situations in the world, could be the best situation in the world. Rocket's got a quip.
Yeah.
So then you obviously get the whole thing of then they start discussing the plan, and I'm gonna say my favorite bit of music in the whole fucking film, the Runaways Cherry Bomb.
Yes, that hero walk.
Yeah.
Yes. The thing is, what I love about that hero walk, she's yawning and he's sniffing, and it's just like,
and Groot's just like, Groot's just
so they
Groot.
are just human.
Yeah.
Like, even the giant ass tree and the dude with too many veins and the little raccoon, they're all just human.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this ensemble so lovable.
Yeah.
You can imagine as a human, but you know what? I don't know about you. When I'm under stress, I get snarky as all hell.
Yeah.
Yes,
this, you do.
You've seen how I get. I turn into the world's worst. Yeah. I'm snarky, okay? And they do too. And they kind of have this attitude of, fuck it. And most people in their situation, I think, would have the attitude of, fuck it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them so accessible. Because what else are they going to do? They're kind of all trapped in their situation. They don't really have a choice in the matter. But they just take it with aplomb. I like that word, aplomb.
Yeah.
Aplomb.
I think the best way to say about them all, they may be assholes, but they're not 100%. But they're not 100% a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're also they may be dicks, but there are dicks,
he called my they got my dick call.
Yeah,
they got my dick call. Yeah, no, I got it. I was just like, yeah.
And of course, in this interim, Ronan breaks from his alliance with Thanos because he realizes that, the Infinity. I've got an Infinity Stone. I don't need Thanos.
What the fuck do I need you for anymore? And then, obviously, as well, you kind of see you see the first little bit of Nebula, I think, as well. In this, of she's kind of willing to side with Ronan here, with breaking with Thanos, because it's like so you get the first little bit of thing from Nebula that hey, no, this guy's done shit to me. You kill him, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Which obviously is going to be explored more the further we get into the MCU movies going forward. So that's your first little hint there. Nebula doesn't just turn around and kill Ronan for
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. She's a nice contrast to Drax in that way. Apologies for that. She's a nice contrast to Drax, because Drax is, I'm the only one who can kill them. Well, she's just like, I don't give a fuck who kills them, just someone kill them.
Yeah.
It's two sides of the same coin, two very different reactions to similar situations. Seriously, this is what it sounds like where I live.
We have the Bradford TT races going on.
Bradford TT. Yeah, it's Mad. Mad Sunday. Police will be out in a bit. Don't worry about it.
And so we have the pseudo climactic scene of we can't let the ship land.
Mm.
And of course, we have the badass scene where they try to get Yondu to get the Ravagers to swap sides.
It was a nice try.
And we see how deadly that arrow is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is valid.
What I said, this is what I think the coolest weapon in the whole of the MCU is that arrow.
Yeah. I'm not even going to argue with that. I have nothing further to add just yet.
I'm just like, fuck anything of any of Iron Man's guns, Captain America's shield, or Thor's hammer. That arrow is the best weapon in the MCU. I'm sorry. Yeah. Fight me.
I'm not fighting you, especially if you've got that arrow.
Yeah.
They have the fight against Ronan, but it doesn't work, and the ship crashes, and Groot has to sacrifice his life to save the team.
I'm gonna say a visual I like was the Xandarian fighters all forming that net.
Oh yeah,
as a visual, that was so cool.
Yeah,
it was very Independence Day, wasn't it? Or Ready Player One type.
Yeah,
not Ready Player One. What's the other one? Ender's Game.
Yeah.
But I just like the whole day that all these tiny little fighters are going to link together and somehow push this giant, try and push this giant. As a visual, that was really cool.
Yeah.
As a visual, it's great. I think it's a little bit undercut by the fact that they could have just taken this thing out by flying one of them straight into it. Because that's a lot of collateral damage for something that could have been taken out with, one well-placed shot.
Back into sex, guys. Sorry.
And then, of course, the Ravagers, when Ronan starts having the, his fighters kamikaze themselves into the city, the Ravagers, do their part by, making sure those craft don't cause as much collateral damage.
Well, this is the thing that I like about this movie. People defend themselves.
Yeah.
When push comes to shove, people defend themselves. And it makes heroes of them for that. And it's really nice to see a movie where the heroes can actually just be selfish. And they're not in it for higher ideals or any of this nonsense. They're just in it because they're one of the idiots who lives in this galaxy.
Yeah.
And it's just really nice to see that because, let's be honest, none of us are going to interstellar war because we believe in the higher ideals of humanity, especially if we lived through 2020. Because what higher ideals?
Yeah.
But we are going to interstellar war because fuck you. This is my planet. And again, it's that humanity of these characters that really comes through and makes them endearing.
And of course, the ship crashes and the Guardians come to with Quill's Walkman playing. Or Quill's ship stereo playing.
Yeah.
And, Ronan has his big, bad guy speech, degrading the Guardians by mockingly calling them the Guardians of the your Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is where Star-Lord has his player character moment. Where instead of starting the climactic battle, he tries to initiate a dance off.
Yeah. Like, dude definitely failed his charisma check for that one.
No. he passed it with flying colors.
I'm sorry, did you see the way he was dancing?
But the thing is, he wasn't actually trying to impress anybody or make the or initiate a dance off. He was just distracting Ronan.
I do not agree. He failed the charisma check, but he crit on the performance check.
Yeah.
That's what happened there.
Or rather, he kind of whiffed the performance. Well, okay, so the way I see it in D&D terms, the player said, I'm going to start dancing like a total dork to try and distract him. And then he crit the roll.
Yeah. He definitely crit a sleight of hand in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a charisma check in there that I feel like Star-Lord's the guy who he really, really wanted to play a bard, but someone else decided they were the bard first. So he's got bard-like qualities, but he doesn't have the charisma stats.
No, so here's what happened. It's like the player's like, I want to play a bard, and the DM's like, no, I don't like horny bards. You're not playing a bard. He's like, okay, I'll make a bard. Oh no, and he's like, okay, and then he plays a high charisma rogue.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's that moment's jarring.
Yeah.
And it's jarring in the same way the switch from the pre-credit and post-start credit scenes are.
Yeah.
All this darkness and fear and terror, and then, woo, you know.
Then, ooh, child, things are gonna get brighter. Ooh, child, things are gonna get easier. Come on. Okay, taking it back.
You do realize that this stream is now going to exist on the internet for eternity of you doing karaoke. Oh, I am so gonna grab that little. Hang on, I need a pen. Someone drop me the timestamp for that in the chat, please. I think it's like 1 minute 33.
Or we're currently at 1 hour.
1 hour 33, not 1 minute 33.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna grab that because that was adorable.
And
cool.
Amiga nuts.
I had to step away whilst you did karaoke.
Well, we can always hang fire if you want to do one too.
Not to that.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe next week. Maybe next week I'll do Fleetwood Mac's The Chain.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I was just say one little thing as well that had happened at the end is that Groot sacrificed himself, or obviously we know he didn't but essentially we don't know that we don't know that at the time.
Actually, we do. He actually pulls a clipping from himself and hands it over. We do. So it's there. We just weren't paying attention.
Oh.
I spotted this. No, I didn't read it on the IMDb page. I just looked at it and I was like, hold on, he's pulled a clip in. Why has he done? Oh,
you obviously, we get to, but that whole thing, because you see the sort of the whole tragic thing, that moment that is for Rocket when he thinks he's lost his friend.
Yeah, and Rocket needs that moment for his character development.
Yeah.
So, it makes you wonder, though, how much Groot knows that he knew to do that before they went into that. Although, to be fair, they were all expecting to die. So this is about...
because you got that one line, "We are Groot."
We
Yeah.
are Groot.
Yeah, but
But-
we are Groot.
So, and we get the climactic, scene where Quill grabs the Infinity Stone.
Yeah, and by the power of Grayskull and friendship.
yeah. You said it yourself, bitch. We're the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Like, that should not have been possible.
And the well, I mean, it did kind of get Chekhov's gun during the expo.
Yeah. It was a bit Chekhov's gun, that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I see what they were getting at and what they were doing, and but I just sort of looked at it and went, really? That's not even how electricity works.
So the more powerful part of that scene isn't, the real emotional climax of that scene isn't "you said it yourself" or the Guardians of the Galaxy.
No,
it's "take my hand."
Yeah. And that's when you know the movie's nearly over, because it harks back to the beginning. It's a cyclical narrative.
Yeah.
And I think I don't like to talk too deeply about emotional moments like that, because they're going to mean different things to different people. That moment for me really mattered.
Yeah.
Matters even more to me now watching it than it did the first time I saw it. Because it was the moment he allowed himself to have a connection to something else and other people that wasn't his mother's memory.
Yeah.
And as he took the hand, he also let go.
Yeah.
And there's an important lesson there in sometimes you have to let things go so you can move on and take hold of something better.
Yeah.
It's very Disney. It's very superhero. It's pie in the sky, airy fairy. But there is a message there.
Yeah.
This is another one that actually made me a little bit weepy.
Yeah.
Because you do kind of have to, because we've seen this character laughing and joking his way through life. When he is serious, it hits even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like seeing a clown cry.
It
hurts more. It hurts more, okay?
I mean, and there's obviously the very warming scene that after this, where obviously he obviously pulls the switch on Yondu, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But he says the line that look, Yondu was the closest, like only family I ever had, and like Gamora is obviously
no, it's not.
No,
Yeah.
it's
the found family trope.
We're your
Yeah.
family.
Like I said, this is a found family movie about criminals starring Vin Diesel, but not that one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very sweet ending.
Yeah.
I'm glad it had the ending it did. I'm a little bit. They had to at least have the sense of losing Groot.
Yeah.
But then again, even in that moment of Groot, oh no, one more chance.
Yeah.
And I like the song as well. The song's very telling for that moment.
Noodle, what's that? Your window there? A second, something going behind you.
No.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to do the whole thing and then freeze.
Yeah.
And turn
Yeah.
They're playing
Listen, you can't play that
playing
trick
the
on me.
Jackson, the Jackson 5 thing is that little dancing thing, dancing little baby Groot dancing there, and like they're just stopping, like being like a twig or whatever. When Drax turns around, I just laugh my ass off at that.
Yeah, it is, and it's cute, and everyone wanted their own baby Groot. Like you would not believe the speed at which crochet patterns for making a baby Groot hit Ravelry.
And obviously, it was a great teaser for Guardians too, baby Groot.
Yeah, baby Groot.
Who is actually kind of terrifying in some scenes of that.
Yeah. Although to be fair, Groot is pretty terrifying anyway.
Yeah.
Like he can grow through someone's eyes.
Yeah.
That's the end of the movie, isn't it?
Aside from
the post-credit scene, obviously.
With
Howard.
Yep.
Which is obviously taking straight back into the MCU and.
Well, and the thing about Howard the Duck is that's one of those comic series that's a commentary on comics by satirizing them.
Yeah. For me, I think the whole Howard the Duck thing, because I don't know much about Howard the Duck, for me, it just felt like I got the impression Howard the Duck is. Howard the Duck feels like one of those characters we don't talk about. Because the fan base did not like.
Well, okay, so we only don't talk about the George Lucas Howard the Duck movie.
Yeah.
You do not want to know about the George Lucas Howard the Duck movie.
I'm going to. Okay.
Yeah.
What tea towel thing? Tusk has been.
Yeah.
What tea towel thing?
I think you're I think the poster behind you.
You mean that one?
The After All This Time Always.
Yeah.
So it still wouldn't turn around so I could do it.
The Harry Potter thing. But and
Harvey Porter thing.
Channel punching bag.
Yeah. But basically
get it up, Ring. It's the first time we've actually been able to do that in this stream.
Yeah. Channel punching bag.
Yeah.
End credit scene anyway.
Yeah, so like Howard the Duck is a fun is a really fun character. Who really is best as just kind of an ancillary on the side kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because that, like I said, the Howard the Duck comics are a satire of superhero comics. And, Howard the Duck is literally just like a duck from the Duck universe who ended up in the Marvel universe, at least in the comics.
That sounds quackers. You're rubbing off on me, Ring. I don't like it.
Oh no,
Yeah, I mean,
well, I mean, he does have a black belt in Quack Fu.
Tell me you're joking.
No,
not at all. I mean, he's been this is a long-standing comic character since the 70s, Howard the Duck, and I mean, there are obviously these characters that come up that are done to satirize the entire genre.
Yeah, Howard the Duck was basically Deadpool before Deadpool.
Or I mean, obviously, when I think when I think about things that satirize the entire genre of comics,
Look,
the
only thing I picked up about that duck was that he had a hell of a quackitude. See, you are rubbing off on me, Ring. It's your fault.
And So, any final thoughts?
Good movie, popcorn movie. Some nice messages in there, not beating you over the head with them. Emotional enough not to be a complete just irrelevance. Largely irrelevant to the wider plot of the MCU, at least initially. Quite clearly an origin story designed to be built on.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it as an insult. I'm saying it's an origin story and it does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
In bright yellow capital letters. I like it. It's just a fun little movie to just chill to.
Yeah. And Scummer?
Yeah, I can't say. Like I said, this was my pick. So for the Marvel month. So like I said, I cannot just emphasize how much I love this movie. Just a fun romp in a lot of ways. But I suppose it's having fun and satirizing the genre without going the whole Deadpool route of just being like the, sort of like fourth wall breaking kind of thing. But it just has a lot of fun with the entire. It has a lot of fun with the whole genre and has a lot of fun with the MCU. But as I said at the beginning, you can watch this movie with no context of the rest of the MCU and just enjoy the hell out of this.
Yeah.
You know, it's just fun. You don't have to be a comic fan or even a sci-fi or space opera fan to get something out of this. This is just a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it is really telling that we each picked movies from phase 3 of the MCU, because phase 3 is when they really started doing other things with the franchise, is where they really started to play around and like get away with more, or let the directors get away with more. And it really shows.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely, yeah. And I think as well, if you have creative people, give them creative control.
Yeah.
Which I think is what phase 1 and 2 potentially lacked.
Yeah. And I mean, like phase 3, the phase 3 movies are largely, hey, here's the project, do what you want. It just needs to have X mentioned in it to set up for another movie. And with that, I think we'll move on to Shilling.
Okay. Only thing I've got to shill at the moment is next Sunday on my channel, just before Media Musings, 1 p.m. UK time, myself and Noodle will be hosting a little bit of an open stream, but really for people who've been fans of what we've been doing over the past year with the Asterix reviews that we've been doing. Because we've kind of come to the end, at least, as far as books published, we are up to date. But I think we want to end on a bit more of a positive, because last few books obviously have been a little bit, and then today's one was more anticlimactic. So we want to end this little thing we've been doing on a positive, I think. So come and join us for that.
Yep. What Scummer said, come join us for the banquet, bring your own balls. That will be Sunday next week. I may do a Death Stranding tomorrow, although the way I'm feeling right now, that there's a pin in that.
Yeah.
I don't really have much else to shill at the moment. I'm just taking each day as it comes. I'm sure there'll be other things cropping up eventually. Classics Twitter movie still goes on every week. There's now the Hannibal rewatch still goes on every week. I still write fan fiction. I still tweet. Again, as always with me, Dead Dove, do not eat, and pay attention to the tags. That's about it.
And next week, Secular D&D should be back on Saturday. And of course, next Sunday we are covering Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 because I didn't realize there would be 5 Sundays in May. Yeah. And with that, we'll move to taglines.
Take care, be good, and if you can't be good, remember, use your noodle.
I am Groot.
And remember, the purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think on. Too often, we forget that.